name is Michael Moran, and I'm a little horse. I've been hollering and screaming for rallies and stuff. Those of you who know me, I've been coming to these things, norml and DPF conferences, since their inception. And I always come as the user. I'm a controlled user. If I don't get it, I'm out of control, and when I have what I want, I'm cool. Just like anybody else, you know. I got a lot of friends that can't get started without a cup of coffee, and a lot of other ones that can't go to bed without a drink. And most of Americans live in that private world where they control the elements of their life with which they get the most pleasures. Their sexual preferences, their religious and social preferences and contacts, and that which they imbibe for that extra lift or whatever. So when we talk about the war on drugs, we're talking about a war on drug users. And it's not so much the substances that differ. In other words, it's not all the beefaholics versus the potheads. It's not all the heads versus the jocks. It's not, you understand? That divisiveness is part of the culture that opposes not the activity of the imbibing, but the thought process that might occur afterwards. That you might come upon a unified idea and be of such persuasion as to go and do something about it. And that something might not be within the same regimented standards around the community in which you live. Vis-a-vis adult bookstores, whether or not another bar opens on the corner, whether you can have topless dancing, whether you can have bars without grocery or meals. All of those things are standards by which the community decides about what the people do after they use these substances. So when you're talking about political reform, practical political reform on this issue, I think what you have to most address is the ignorance of people that they can change, the masses' persuasion that doing something in your private life could possibly be dangerous to the whole. Mark my point. It's something that you could do of your own volition, with any of these substances, might be of such magnitude as to dispose the rest of us from a common goal, from our good nature, or what's worse, our own mores. And that the ballot box is the litmus test of the ignorance from which the media has been able to persuade the masses that they can do nothing about it. My argument for 25 years with potheads is that not enough of them were doing something about it. John Kaplan ended his book, The New Prohibition, in 1970, and he said in the last paragraphs, I paraphrase, I don't remember things that well, but paraphrasing. The marijuana laws will stay on the books so long as there are not a sufficient number of them to change the laws at the polls, or that there are so many marijuana users as were, this is 1970, as are our adultery laws now, no one will prosecute them. The sexual revolution was just then happening, if you remember correctly. In other words, if there's enough of us doing it out in the open, there'll be no prosecution. When was the last time you heard somebody sued for adultery? In that same sense, he laid the challenge down to us 20 years ago. When enough of us take it to the polls. Now I'm here because we had a winner. I'm sure all of you saw this or heard him on your television. It was the only senatorial race in the country. And in this room are a number of students that were involved in dumping Dick Thornburgh. It wasn't so much that we won with Wofford, but that we shot that hole I think Bill Bennett said it was a shot to the hull. Now, Bill Bennett knows a dirty pool blow when it comes. We shot one in the hull in Pennsylvania across the bow of this Bush Quayle administration. And we in central Pennsylvania at Penn State made sure that the war on drugs was part of that process, that campaign. They knew it. They knew that in the end, if they won, when the senator comes back to the campus, we will be discussing what the students want in Pennsylvania in terms of policies on campuses regarding marijuana possession and paraphernalia. Whether or not it means expulsion or simple one-semester suspension, maximum. The same as for alcohol. No difference. And they won it by a ballot test a few days before Senator Hines came to State College in a town meeting where he asked for a poll and a show of hands and found that even in central Pennsylvania, where it's 3-1 Republican, that it appeared to be even for those who would not be indisposed to take simple possession and treat it like a traffic fine. And the next day he was gone. And we were involved in the campaign the moment afterwards when we heard that Thornburg was going to be the possible candidate on the Republican Party. They hadn't even named Senator Wofford yet. So the drug issue and the war on drugs, and Thornbush, as it's called now, was part of that campaign. At the Drug Policy Foundation right now are 5 of Senator Wofford's best friends from the 50s and the early 60s. Because of the political activism of a bunch of students on the campus, they now have a senator that they can walk to and ask questions and get straight answers about hemp, the privacy issue, marijuana for medicine, and the right as potheads to organize on a campus and act politically without being suppressed by the administration. And that is political action at its basic level. If you cannot convince the young people to get involved, as the gentleman in the end and I know, we've been involved years and years in this. The encouragement that we have now is that there are so many young people that are up to their keisters in this Republican nonsense and are willing to do something about it. They're laying their lives on their line, their student loans, their futures, and often their careers to continue a lifestyle that guys like me refused at the end of the 60s to go back and wear a tie for. And I'm only so happy to be here at BPF now because this is the time when my paper, User Input, finally comes into the hopper with all these people that are involved in anti-prohibitionists and social reform on drugs. Let them know that these potheads are not crazy running around. We have been involved in political activism since 1972, right straight up. And this year, as he said, 32, remember, they always talked about Reagan being like Coolidge. Who followed Coolidge? Hoover. And what is his middle name? George Herman Walker Bush, right? Don't you forget it. Hoover is the economic element that we can work up. You hear him talking about it now. And we got Duke on one side and Buchanan on the other. Bush is vulnerable. And this drug war is one of the questions that you professional people have to get at your party people, Democrats and Republicans, to answer. Thank you.